We'll continue to unpack this, obviously, with our reporter who's on the scene for us, essentially for the past 4 days, senior news reporter Canny Maphanga, following the Madlanga Commission very closely for us. Canny, a very good afternoon to you. So that's a wrap then of day 4 of the commission. I mean, an interesting day, of day 4 of the commission. Let's get then the crux of General Masemola's testimony, especially his statements around the way in which Police Minister Mchunu, now on special leave, moved to abruptly disband the task team. As you give us the highlights of this testimony today, can you perhaps, respond to whether or not does he come out to say what it was in fact unlawful and an operational overreach in terms of what the minister did?
Indeed, good afternoon to you, Nati, and to the viewers at home. Well, when speaking about the actual political killings task team, it does appear that General Masemola does hold back a bit on some of the tough questions that the commissioners are posing with respect to how he conducted himself after getting an instruction that was unlawful, according to his terms, based on the earlier evidence that he gave the commission. Now, we know that this evidence is centered on the political killings task team with respect to Kwanazi's evidence regarding the disbandment, how he had no knowledge of it, and then of course what he did following that. So if we look at the foundation of what was set in the morning earlier, the commission was clear with setting a foundation regarding the clear distinction between Canny Maphanga as the general of the national SABC, as an operational head, then of course the minister, police minister Senzo Mchunu, as a policy head. So the strategic visionary of that particular institution. Then of course Masemola is the one who comes up with the how, the plan to, how to implement what is being directed by the police minister. For example, if the priority is identified by the minister as cash and transit heists, then of course General Masemola would be the person who would develop how and the kind of resources that would be deployed to fighting that particular priority that has been identified as the policy head. If we zoom into after the lunch adjournment, he gets into more of the meat of the evidence because he's laid the foundation, but now we're going into the very evidence that Mkwanazi has addressed last week. So the key figure of Vusumuzi-Kat Matlala comes up again in the evidence of General Masemola. He tells the commission, or testifies rather, that a concerned individual approached him stating that Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, who is currently on a stay-at-home order in the wake of the allegations that Mkwanazi has made since July. It stated that Shadrack Sibiya allegedly enjoyed a close relationship with Vusumuzi-Kat Matlala, and it is against that backdrop that General Masemola says that the concerned party, who he will not name, stated that it is not okay or prudent to have Sibiya or the Gauteng team working on this investigation involving Matlala, but rather to bring in this this deployment of the PKTT members from KwaZulu-Natal. He also addresses in quite detail the disbandment of the PKTT, and it appears from his evidence that it seemed to be news from him. So when the minister essentially decided to disband the PKTT, and that letter came out, which was leaked to the media, the General Masemola states to the commission that he was actually on leave at the time, and that the leave had actually been granted by the minister. So Minister Mchunu, at the time of drafting this letter that gave such an instruction, was fully aware that Masemola was on leave, according to the testimony. In addition to that, Masemola states that he had seen the minister prior to that letter being released or leaked or being made public. He had seen him at a funeral prior to that, and at no point did the minister mention to him that this particular decision was going to be arriving on his desk, or that it was imminent, or that it was looming. He absolutely had no clue that such a decision was going to come from the minister. Of course, he states yet again, affirming Kwanazi's evidence, that this was encroaching on his mandate as the National Commissioner of the South African Police Services when the minister decided to take a decision which goes into the realm of the operation operations of SABC and not its policies. He also goes into quite great detail that it is his view that this team was successful. Of course, the measure of success was placed before the commissioners, where we're seeing that there were 612 dockets, 297 were finalized. That's almost 50%. And according to General Fani Mosomola, that whenever this PKTT was deployed, it achieved success. So even where there were cases that were stagnant, they were stubborn, they were not moving, if you put the PKTT there, then they would start to see results. There's also another issue, because General Masemola has laid the foundation that he would not, or rather he would not obey an instruction that is unlawful. And he's already set the foundation that if the minister made a decision that dealt into operations, then it would be an unlawful decision. So now the commissioners are questioning why the general decided to heed or relent to the instruction of the disbandment of the PKTT if he was well aware of the fact that it was an unlawful instruction, because the minister would not have had the powers to do so because it was an operational decision. However, you can see with respect to that, he is holding back on the, I guess, the real crux of the issues and the complexities of disobeying an instruction that may come from a minister of police. But he did intimate towards this issue by stating earlier, when he was probed in generic terms, that you could disobey the instructions, but I think the correct words he used was it can be quote-unquote career limiting. So we expect for him to continue with his testimony tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in the morning when the Madlanga Commission continues. Over to you in studio.
Thanks so much, Canny Maphanga, there for us, just giving us that wrap.